In a world of constant consumption, it can be overwhelming to our nervous systems and our spirit. Let's navigate the world together with topics to help inspire you, help you grow, help you find the magic that is you, and help you move into an active role of your soul's experience. Taking you from passenger to the driver's seat, this is Conscious Consumption. Welcome to Conscious Consumption. I am your host, Serena, and today we are going to be discussing the magical work of music. Before we dive in, though, I want to just take a moment to pause and thank you all for tuning in. I want to set an intention for us together for this episode and for all future episodes to come, for all future listeners to come, that with each episode that we are sharing the space together with, that we are tapping into our own inner wisdom, our own inner magic, that it opens a little something for each of us. And then it's through tapping into our own inner magic that helps us see the magic in others, that helps us see the magic in the world. And that creates a ripple effect, that spreads. And that through that, we are making it a lighter, brighter place for all. There's way too much dark out right now, and we need more people coming to the light and sharing and caring together. So I set that intention for our show. And then as we get ready to get into this episode today, I just want to share really quick. I could have gone a couple different ways with this episode. We're talking about music. I mean, music go into so many different facets with it, right? I have a sound practitioner background, so I definitely could have dived into the sound baths and that kind of thing. I did not want to for today because I want to actually focus more on when we are out in life and we are putting on our playlists and playing our music in the car, driving somewhere, or out on our hike, listening to our music. I want to also talk about how that music that we listen to could affect us, how it could help us heal our chakras, how it could help us bring energy up, move energy through the movement portion of it, if we're moving to it, how it could help us unite. And when I say unite, I think about automatically, it just goes to this, but I think about music and uniting. I always think of weddings. And if any of you have been to a wedding, which I'm sure you all have at one time or another, like you'll know this right away too. There are certain songs that you could play at a wedding where when you play it, everybody goes out on the dance floor. And I worked weddings for a very short, brief period in my life. And during that time, when I was doing the event planning, the reception time would come around and I always got to observe people on the dance floor. And that was really fun to see. I loved seeing people of all ages coming together out on the dance floor and just that vibrancy and that energy coming up and people just having a good time together. It was really cool experience. The two songs I always think of that did that I was actually, I can listen to one of them, or actually both I can listen to now, but I got burnt out on them for a while because there was always Cool in the Gang Celebration. That's like every time that song came on, everyone would join, which was amazing. But it was just like that repetitiveness for me because I was always hearing it at all the weddings I was at and different experiences there. But anyway, and then the other one is Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. And that was the other song that just got played over and over by every DJ out there. And it's so funny now because now I can listen to it and totally like doesn't bother me. I'm not as burnt out on it like I was. And it's my youngest like loves that song. But so we talk about music and how it could help us unite, right? Like I just gave an example, like it brings us together. And then talking about how we could be the instrument and how we could be the receiver. We already know how we could be a receiver. We listen through our ears with the sound that comes through, right? We we experience it in our bodies, but we could also be the instrument. We could be the ones to create the sound, create the music out in nature with our own breath, with their own heartbeat. And how do I mean? Well, I mean that from that very first heartbeat that our mother experienced with us while we were in the womb. That was music that they were tuning into. Or maybe at the end of our life cycle, that very last breath that we breathed into the veil, saying our goodbyes to our loved ones. That is music. And then we think about nature and the songs that nature plays. We hear birds singing outside. We hear the wind whistling through the trees, the frogs, the crickets. Did you know plants have a song that they sing? I thought this was pretty awesome. I didn't know about this until just recently. And when I was looking at it, I guess that's pretty new technology. But there are a couple different companies. One is Plants by Music, or I'm sorry, Music by Plants. I had that backwards. And then the other one is Plantweave. And thanks to technology that's out now, these companies, and there's a third one, but I can't remember the third one. But anyways, they have created these devices that allow you to take these cords, if you will, and then they have like little tiny clamps, and you clamp them onto the leaf of the plant. And then through the electromagnetic pulses from the plant, the device takes that and then it's able to turn it into these melodies. So we're able to experience the songs from the plants through these pulses, which I thought was pretty cool. The reason we need these devices, by the way, is because the frequency that the plants sing at, if you will, they are too low for us to pick up with our human ear. So we can't detect it with our ear. Otherwise, we would be able to hear it as well. And then let's talk about how we could use music in life, music as our muse. How can we use music to help us transmute emotions? How can we use music to help us be in the ebb and flow of life? To not find resistance when things that are maybe unplanned come up and create tension with us? How can we use music to create a fire under our behind, if you will, to throw us into action, to have more energy? So there's different ways that we could play around with it, and we're going to discuss that. Before we do, though, I want to share 2 experiments that kind of help paint the picture of why music's important, why words are important. The first experiment was completed, well, there were several experiments that he did, but the first experiment was done by a man by the name of Dr. Masaru Emoto. He was a Japanese researcher, scientist, and I think he passed away in like 2014, I believe, when I was reading about him. But he had several books. I want to say it was like 13 books or something that I saw. And I want to name just 3 of them here because I want to kind of paint a picture of what his books were about. These are just 3 of the books. But the 3 books being The Hidden Messages in Water, The Miracle of Water, and Water Crystal Healing. Now, you could tell from the names of those 3 books, what do you think his research was about? It was about water. Okay, so he used sound to see the effects that sound made on water. Why is that important? Well, folks, because we are made up primarily of water. So what he did was he had these experiments that he would conduct where he took Petri dishes and he would use water that was from a natural source, which I want to highlight. He did not use tap water because tap water is touched by man, treat it with fluoride and chlorine and all these different things. But he used water from natural sources, whether it was a stream or a river, and then he'd have them in these dishes. And then from there, he would expose the water to either music or words, and he would have them separate it, right? And the one would receive, maybe it was music that was more uplifting, that was a high vibrational music, such as classical music was one thing that he would use a lot with these experiments. Or maybe it was encouraging words or uplifting words or high vibrational words like the word love. And then on the other end of the spectrum, he would have these petri dishes with water that had, they were being given and receiving words that weren't as high vibrational, right? That were lower on the scale. So a word such as hate, or maybe it was music like heavy metal, which is something I read. I'm not just bringing this up to bring up. um, so he would do these experiments and he found that the ones that received the high vibrational music or words, they had these beautifully formed, symmetrical, snowflake-like structures in the water from the ripples in the water that would create these beautiful snowflake designs. And then the other end of the spectrum, the ones that received these things that weren't so positive, right, had these distorted ripples in the water where it was like discord. It didn't mesh up. They weren't, perfectly symmetrical or anything. Now, why do we care? Like I said, we're made up primarily of water. So you can see how this could affect us, right? The second experiment that I want to share is the plant experiment. And I'm sure very many of you have heard of this experiment once I start discussing it. But essentially, you take either two plants or you take two seeds. They receive everything the same in their environment as far as the light, as far as the soil, the water, the only variable being what? The music or the words. So just like the previous experiment. So you take them, you have them separate out. One receives either the music or words that are, lower on the scale for vibration, and then the other one, the opposite, where it's receiving a higher vibration. So the one that I read most recently, which I've seen quite a few of these studies through the years, I think we even mentioned or shared it in one of my sound practitioner trainings years ago. But anyways, this particular one that I read recently, they did speeches, and they had one that was a hate-filled speech that was being exposed to this one plant. And then the other plant was receiving a Martin Luther King speech. And that Martin Luther King speech was uplifting and encouraging and positive words that were coming out of that. And the two plants showed significant difference in growth rates. The one that was receiving the positive words, the Martin Luther King speech, was growing at a faster rate. It was showing more vibrancy. And so I feel that that's really important to share and highlight, because as we get into music today, we're going to see how this all ties in. The two experiments that I shared point to the importance of the words and the music. So we can now discuss how you could have a song weaver's spell casting with songs and how that could change the frequency of our mind, right? Because we're using these words and we're hearing these words and we're taking them in. We're the receivers. Even if we're the instrument and we're using our voice, like that's going to affect it too, right? So as we get into this, and we think about like song weaving, we think about the music that we listen to, the spell casting, if you will. I'm sure when I say spell casting music, you're going to automatically think of a few artists in particular. I know Lana Del Rey is like known as someone that does spell casting, right? In the cult community, she has a name for herself as far as that goes. Florence and the Machine, also Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks in particular. I'm wearing a shirt, so that's why I kind of made that sound there. I love Fleetwood Mac. Anyways, so we think of these artists, but what about other artists? What about us? We're definitely casting spells too with our words. When we have emotion in them, when we have the intent, we're casting those out. We are putting that frequency, putting that energy out there. Remember, music is sound. Sound is frequency. Frequency is vibration. And vibration is the language of the universe. So we want to be mindful of these things, right? We could be listening to music that is creating discord in our body. And maybe it's bringing up certain emotion that isn't for our greater good. Maybe it's eliciting rage. Maybe it's eliciting sadness. Even if the message is speaking out about injustices in the world, our focus, our energy is going to that. And that is negatively affecting our body because that's affecting the ripple throughout our body, right? I definitely think of a couple artists in particular, but I'm going to mention one, not the artist. I won't mention the name, but I'll just kind of mention the tone of the song, but why I don't listen to it. So there is a song, when I heard it for the very first time, I absolutely loved the sound. I thought it was a great beat. Love like how she did the layering of music and everything. Love the sound, how it sounds. However, you listen to the lyrics, I'm like, there's no way I'm listening to that song. Because if I listen to that song, I'm going to be singing to myself affirmations that I have anxiety over and over and over again. It's a super popular song. I'm sure you all have heard it. It's on like all the social media, it's everywhere. And I cannot believe that people listen to this song over and over because they're setting affirmations for themselves that they have anxiety. It's like, why would you listen to this? So it's just kind of crazy to me. Um, music is great. Like we have these opportunities to have these experiences and experience these different emotions, right? Experience these different things. We definitely have, culture, and we have art, like the artistic side of music. But we want to be careful because in the music industry, obviously, there's going to be psychology involved. There's going to be marketing. There's going to be hidden agendas. So you want to be aware of what you're listening to, and you want to be aware of what you're taking in because you're taking it into your mind and your body. You're taking it into your spirit. You're taking it all in. And then what are you vibrating out after, right? So reflecting on a song that you have listened to and how maybe in that moment you felt a little discouraged. Maybe you have a time that you could remember that you felt a little down and then you heard a song and maybe it helped inspire you. Maybe it helped support you. Maybe you felt more grounded when you listened to the song. Or maybe there's a song, I know I've definitely had them, but the songs that become your anthem, you have that song on a loop. And it's just like you hear that song and it boosts up your energy, and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to take on the day, Um, so we have ways to like use music in a magical way. We could choose consciously. We could invite it into our daily spiritual and magical practice. And how can we do that? Well, we could create a magical playlist. Our playlist could be our potion, if you will, where each song is the ingredient. So when you're building this playlist, when you're creating this playlist, you treat the songs like they're an ingredient. And what I mean by that is you take the time to choose wisely. You listen to that song, you take it in, and how does it make you feel energetically? What is the experience that you're having with it? Are you finding that it boosts your energy? What is the intent with the song and the lyrics? What is the vibration of the lyrics? And then what is it stirring up in you? Because even if it's a positive song, even if it's a song that has the best intent, maybe there's a memory that you have tied to it from somebody that you listen to with it that maybe you don't have such a great experience with now, or maybe it brings up a certain memory for a certain time of your life where you're on a different growth path now. I mean, there could be several reasons, right? So taking that time to really choose wisely with these songs and with these ingredients, if you will, and the potion that you're creating of this playlist. And then that way you are being mindful and you're having a lot of heart with it, right? You're creating this piece. And through that, creation too is magical in its own way. But you're taking the time to create consciously. You're taking the time to be creative. You're taking the time to have the heart and with intention and with what you're wanting to invite in as far as energy goes. And yes, we could always hit shuffle on our Spotify, Apple, whatever we're listening to, right? The problem with shuffle, and believe me, I'm guilty about this because I have days where even out of my hundreds of playlists, I can't remember how many I have. My daughter made fun of me one time, but that even with that, I get bored and stuff. So sometimes like I'll want to listen to something new or, discover new groups or whatever. But the problem with putting it on shuffle is for the obvious reason of you don't know what it's going to be recommended to you and what it's going to play. And by the time it plays something that maybe isn't so great, it's already too late, right? So having some playlists that are your magical playlists or your spiritual playlists. And I actually created two playlists that I want to share today. I cannot play the songs for you on the air for obvious reasons, right? Because of recording rights and all that. So I'm just going to go through the intention behind creating the playlist, the artists, and then the song, and then why I chose that song. Okay. So the first playlist that I kind of curated was with thinking about things today, thinking about where we are today as far as the world around us, what's going on in the world. Not necessarily focusing on the dark, but acknowledging that, yes, it's there. And then what do I want to do about it? Where do I want to focus my energy? Maybe you have, people in your life, whether it's, leaders, family members, friends, that you feel that disconnect with because you feel like maybe you guys are on two completely different paths, but so distant too in your thinking and what they're choosing to do as far as how they're living and focusing on. So with that in mind, and then taking it for the direction of trying to tune in to all the people and the animals and nature and tune in to the light that we could share with one another and try to bring around the world rather than focusing on the dark. Because like I said, guys, there's a lot of dark out there. We could sure stay in that darkness and discuss politics and discuss what's wrong all day long. We could go there. But is that helping you? Is that helping the other person? Is that helping your body? Nope. So let's try to have something that we could help change the vibration. We could have it ripple out. And so that was the intent with this playlist. So this is more of a spiritual playlist. I would say that these songs, although some of the artists, like if you're in the yoga community, you're definitely going to know these artists and you're probably going to know the songs. If you're not, you might not know the names as well. And by the way, when I mention these, I'm going to just apologize ahead of time. One of the artists, I should have looked up how to say his name. I feel really bad and I really like him, but I never say his name right and I always forget how to say it. So anyways, this playlist is a spiritual playlist that helps encourage the connection with the world around us. And I have these artists on my Spotify, and I know they could be found on all major platforms. I am going to take a quick peek at my list just because I want to make sure I stay on track with what I have here. But the first song that I have is Loka Samasta Suki no Bhavantu. And that's by Marty Nico and DJ Drez. It loosely translates to may everyone in the world be happy. And it's all about sending energy out of love to others. And sending the energy out to love to others, even those people, those leaders, those family members, those friends, those people that maybe we're feeling that disconnect with, maybe we're not agreeing with some of the decisions they're making, the things that they're doing, send love to them. They need it the most. So that's what this song is about, is just sending it out to everyone and that understanding that we're all on different paths, that we signed up for this experience. We all have different soul contracts. And just remembering that ripple effect I keep talking about, guys, because that's what it's about. It starts with us. The second song is Bliss by MC Yogi. And this song is definitely more of one of those programming songs, right? You have a lot of repetitive words of encouragement, helps program our brains, helps us focus on something more uplifting. And then the third song for that playlist is Heaven by MC Yogi and Modest Yahoo. And that particular song, the reason I chose it is because it's all about acknowledging that we hold the key to our experience. So just like I was talking about, right? Shedding the light, it starts with us. It starts with us and our experience and what we allow to ripple out to others. And so this song is all about that. It's about heaven on earth. It's about heaven right now. It's about us seeing the experience that we want to see and, have. We get to choose. It begins with illuminating the path for ourselves and illuminating the path for others, being that light in the dark, which right now we need. We need more people doing this. And then working on ourselves to surrender to the process through that death and birth and just the death and birth cycle. Like when I think of that, like thinking of the phoenix, like in fact, I think there's a portion in the lyrics where it talks about phoenix rising from the ash, but that whole experience, like us being the light, us coming out of the darkness and sharing and lighting up for others, showing that path. So, we talked about the musical playlists and how to use that. I gave some examples there. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys have heard of the songs and if you're familiar with them. And then this other one, and I'm sorry, I almost forgot to share the second playlist. I was like so involved in the first one. I was like, yes, I love this playlist. But the second one, I actually really liked too. It was just I was more excited about the first. But the second one, I chose to go a completely different direction with the playlist. And this one I used kind of with the intention of somebody that's experiencing hardships in a relationship or just really needing to reclaim that power from within, feeling confident, feeling strong in themselves. Someone that's maybe feeling a little bit more of that female energy to like be powerful in their body and love themselves and love their bodies. So this playlist, you're going to definitely recognize the artists and the songs. It's more mainstream. But the first song that I have is Love Myself by Haley Steinfeld. And that song is all about how you don't need anybody, whether it's sensual or not. You are enough on your own. And I love that song. The second one is an oldie but goodie, and that is Aretha Franklin, Respect. And that song is just like the lyrics, right? It's all about, demanding to be treated right. And I love her voice in it. It's so soulful. I love Aretha Franklin. And then the last song that I chose is really because the affirmations are stacked one on top of another. And it's such a great song altogether. And that's I Am Woman by Emily Melly. So that was the second playlist I created and wanted to share. So give it a listen. Let me know what you thought and which ones you liked. Comment below on whatever platform you're on, or you could send me a message on Soleil to Moon on Instagram. So backing up now, because since I almost forgot that second playlist, we talked about the musical ways, the magical musical ways that we could work it into our practice as far as spiritual and daily, right? With these playlists. What about chakras and healing? How can music play a role with that? Well, when we think about dancing, right? There's movement involved. When we move a certain way, we could help activate the chakras. We could help move energy. So depending on the particular movement structure, we could definitely activate the heart chakra, the solar plexus, the sacral, the root chakra. And when we think of the root chakra, that's really going to be like more of the hip movement and like shaking too. That could really help promote the energy flow and activate the root chakra. It could also help activate the sacral chakra. Having your chest open and wide, that's going to help activate your heart chakra. So doing those movements where maybe you're a little more open and flowy with your arms open, that's opening your chest more, having that chest and sternum out, right? And then movements that help you feel connected with yourself, that help you move your abdomen, are going to help activate that solar plexus. And I wanted to give kind of an example here of how you could do this. So in Kundalini, there's the like the seated torso circles is what I'll call them, just so you have the visual if you're not familiar with the movement for the Kundalini. I'm not going to say the actual Sanskrit name. But anyways, so you have these seated torso circles where you do them on your glutes with your legs crisscross, and then you move your upper torso in a circular motion. And you could do this standing up. And when you do it standing up, I would say have your feet against the ground. So don't have any shoes on or flip-flops or anything like that. That way you can really focus on grounding into the earth and feeling the floor beneath you. You're going to be in a squatted position, but with your legs kind of open, your hips open and wide. So if you know what a goddess squat is, that's essentially what you're doing. If not, what you're doing is you're standing with your legs apart, then bending your knees almost at a 90-degree angle, or get low to a 90-degree angle if you can, but the hips are going to be open. And then from there, you're going to have your torso moving in a circular motion. And as you're doing this, you are then activating those chakras through this movement, through connecting with the earth. So the root, the sacral, the solar plexus. You could then even open up your arms, get the heart involved, open up the heart space. You could do affirmations with us, but you're singing along to the song is part of your affirmation, right? So you could do this. Another way that you could use dance and use music in a magical way with dance would be by raising your energy. You could use dance to really lift and increase the energy that builds within you. We use this for manifesting, right? When you manifest, if you're doing a vision board or anything like that, it's really important to get your energy up, right? So while you're doing this, you could do a dance. You could help build that fire within you. And as it builds, then you could go ahead and work on your manifesting your vision board, whatever it is that you're doing. You could use energy to help release what no longer serves, both internally, but also externally, right? You could release the energy, allow it to flow out down through the bottoms of your feet, focusing on that as you're moving. And as you're moving, that's also helping move that energy. You can enter a trance-like state while you're focusing on your third eye, feeling the vibration of the music. Now, this is not going to be with plain Miley Cyrus, guys. This is going to be like if you're listening to a different vibrational music. So I would look into something that's like a higher frequency, hertz tone and stuff like that you could do. They actually have specific things on like Insight Timer, but you could look at that. And then the one that I want to mention, that's the obvious one that it all starts with, is play. And why do I want to draw our attention to play? Well, because we have gotten so far as adults away from play. A lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us. And I feel like it's really important to tune into our inner childlike spirit and have that wild, untamed nature and just really have that experience of moving without judgment, not worrying about who's watching or not worrying about what it looks like, but just feeling in your body and moving. And I think kids are just like the perfect example of this. And that's why I said, like, finding that inner childlike spirit through this, through the movement portion. Because I think of my youngest, she loves to dance. She doesn't dance all the time, but there are a couple of songs that when they come on, she starts busting a move or two. And one of those songs, it's so funny, but she is like hooked on. Every time we get in the car now, she wants to hear it. And it drives me nuts now because I'm so like burnt out on it. But she wants to hear the Justin Timberlake troll song, and I always forget the name of the song, but something feeling. Anyways, she always wants to hear that song. And when you put it on her TV on like YouTube or whatever, she starts dancing, she starts moving around, she's like stomping her foot, she has her little hand up next to her ear and pretending like there's a little headphone there. Like she's doing her own moves and she's having fun, but she's like in it. She's not worried about like if I'm watching her or her sister's watching her or her dad or anybody. She's just having a good time, just in her nature, in her element, in her body, experiencing the joy of music, the magic of music, the magic of movement. And I think that's pretty awesome. So we have a lot to learn from kids as far as allowing ourselves to play with music and play with dance, right? Because I think sometimes we get too caught up in like all the stuff. And I know a lot of it stems from, people that have said things to us before. Maybe they said, oh, what's that dance move? you know? Um, but like just being able to be caught up in the moment and not be up here in our heads, but be here in our hearts and be here in our bodies, in our spirit, having fun playing in this experience. So that's another way that you could use dance with the magical practices as far as the energy flow and whatnot. Then we talk about the chakras and singing. And before I kind of get into this, I want to have just a few kind of reflection questions that we kind of look at, because I know all of us have experienced this at one time or another. But how many of you were told that you were expressing too loudly as a child? Or maybe you were often quieted and asked to quiet down, or don't speak your opinion, or this isn't the time to discuss this, or other things. Maybe you had experiences where people laughed at you when you had an experience gained up on stage when you were doing a performance or something, whatever it is. These things all affected us. These things do continue to affect us, especially if we are already experiencing them in our childhood and we've never dealt with the healing portion of how it affects us. I want to share a little experience, a personal experience of mine, and a little bit about that for me. So growing up, I had a lot of this stuff that was worked in, where I was told that I wasn't a good singer. I was actually teased a lot by my own family for not being a good singer. It was actually like a running joke with my family. Like they all thought it was funny, like even, yeah, just to tease me about it. The other thing is really early on, when I was really young, I lived in an abusive household. And during a time that a child should be sleeping, I was often woken up in the middle of the night, or I wouldn't be able to go to sleep because when nightfall came, so did the abuse. And so it wasn't always directed towards us. It mainly was directed towards my mother. But nevertheless, I had a time where I had to be very quiet. I had to sneak down the hall to my brother's room, and then he would take me in his room and we would barricade the door, and then I would have to sleep there for the night because that's how things were. And so I was taught that I couldn't make noise. I couldn't ever, I couldn't just sleep. I had to be like super quiet and like sneak out and not stay in my bedroom because of these experiences. Then later in life, I had somebody who at the time was someone that was a larger role in my life. an old relationship. And I got into a relationship that wasn't conducive for me, mentally or spiritually or physically or anything. The person was highly abusive. And that person used to constantly pick at me and tell me how annoying my voice was. And it was a way for him to kind of hold me down and make me feel small so that I would perhaps behave, quote unquote, right? So that I wouldn't speak up, so that I wouldn't have these opinions. Because when I had these opinions, I was told that I was a nag, or I was told that my voice was annoying, or, whatever it was. And it didn't matter what it was. And then I had an experience of working in a career for 15 and a half years where, in my role, I was a project manager, client manager, the place that I came from. But I didn't start off that way. But when I had moved into a coordinator role, project coordinator role, and then into a manager role, it was a really different experience for me. It was a different experience for me because when I moved into that manager role, I dealt with subcontractors more frequently. I directly dealt with the clients. I directly dealt with the field staff who were under my supervision. I dealt with the upper management. And the reason I'm sharing this is because during that job and that experience of that role, I was taught very early that I couldn't have my own voice the way it was. I had to harden my voice because I worked in a predominantly male environment. I had subcontractors that when I would talk to them in the beginning, and even some towards the end too, but not so much. But anyways, in the beginning, I had guys that would call me babe, honey, and darling, which was so unprofessional. I'm still like, what? But just it was experiences like that. Or I'd have people that when I would be asking for something for scheduling or trying to coordinate things, they were just unprofessional in how they talked to me, talking down to me. And that was with our subcontractors, people that I was supposed to be paying to do work for us. So it was a really crazy experience. And then I also dealt with the field side. The people that reported to me didn't have a lot of respect for me. I wasn't in the field. I was this female that was in office, that was giving directives, that was trying to help out, but they didn't see it that way. They saw it as this person that had never really worked in the dirt with them, out in the field and not understanding where they were coming from. And then with my management team, I was the first non-engineer female to be in that role of project manager and client manager. I worked predominantly for and with, alongside other managers and upper management staff that were engineers and that were male. So I learned to kind of harden my voice. I would talk a certain way. I had a lot more, like I was very direct when I would talk. I had a hardness, like I keep saying, but I did have a hardness to myself. And I just felt like I couldn't be myself because when I was myself, I either had people that were part of the staff that I felt like would try to kind of take advantage of things. And then I had the experience of subcontractors, like I said, that would think it was okay to speak to me a certain way. And so it was just this constant thing. So I was constantly feeling like throughout my life, like I couldn't have my true voice. I couldn't have my experience of who I was, my truth, my inner truth coming out through my voice because I was either being shut down all the time or, whatever. So these are the kind of experiences that really affect us through life, right? It affects our throat chakra. It affects us, our ability to be able to speak up, to have confidence in our words, to be able to express ourselves through our words, to be able to trust in our words, to be able to cast out spells with our words. We might even see this showing up in a nervousness around public speaking. And I want to share another experience. This one is related to karaoke. So I had not too long ago during a family game night, I had done family karaoke. So it was my little inner circle of family. It was my oldest and then my husband. And for those that know as well, know that that's like not a thing that we usually do. You have a couple of introverts in the group, and we're just not, usually we're pretty relaxed. Like we're not looking to, sing and just have this whole performance thing going. But my husband had the idea because he thought that it would really help me and then help my daughter. And it was a really cool experience because it was the first time ever that I had really allowed myself to let my voice out and really be heard. And I sang a song. I sang Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. And which is a crazy song for me to sing because I know I have no business on singing that song, but I love that song. But anyways, so when I sang that song, I wanted to sing it and like really sing it. And I did that. I really like belted out the song. I let the power come out. And it was like each time as my voice, as I allowed myself to get a little louder, as I allowed a little bit more power in my voice, a little bit more truth in my voice and my words and the experience, I had this expression that came out of like more authenticity, a little bit more openness. I could feel a little bit more movement of the energy. Like I literally, like I remember like feeling like it felt like my throat was opening up a little bit more. And I know from experience and from other practitioners that I've worked with for my own healing that I have cord entanglement, that I have like stuff going on. And I know that from my experiences of, what I shared with you guys. And the reason I share this is because it's good to note and notice like what's going on within ourselves and the experiences that we have and how they affect us and the importance of words and the importance of us being heard and how to heal these areas, how to do our own healing. And through singing, that is a way that we could help heal the throat chakra. You still want to probably work with a practitioner, right? Work with an energy practitioner. However, you can do your own self-healing on your own with singing. You could allow your voice to come out and have that power. You could allow the unleashing and allow your voice out of its cage. And it really is a sacred act of reclaiming. It really is a ceremony, the experience of it, right? Like we're like, oh yeah, sing along, karaoke, whatever. But no, like you can make it an intentional thing. You can make it a step for you to work on your own throat chakra and healing. Another direction that we could go with using the vocal cords for healing is through chanting. And chanting, we talked about voice and voice being power, right? And then you have with chanting is an ancient magical experience. It's this ancient thing that has been around forever. And we have this way to like tap into that. And so when you have chanting, you could do it with more intention, mantra chanting, right? And then you're talking about, whoa, then you got both voice, then you got power, then you got intention, then you got the repetitiveness, which is the programming for our brains. So we have all these things working that are awesome. With chanting, we have the vibration that we feel because we're going through that rhythmic, process with our words. So we have that experience of being able to feel the vibration in our throats, feeling the vibration in our bodies, feeling the vibration in our environment. And one way we could experience this, by the way, is through group chanting. So if you're someone that's maybe not as sensitive to subtle energies, group chanting is definitely a really good way to experience the vibration and the energy of the experience of chanting, right? So I had early on in my 200-hour yoga teacher training, we did a chanting exercise, and I can't remember if it was like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It wasn't very long. But a group of like 10 of us, we had to chant, and we sat there on the ground and we chanted. And then at the very end of the chant, we sat in silence with our eyes closed in a meditative state. Now, going through the same word over and over is what we did. And at the end, when we sat in that silence, it was crazy. It literally felt like the walls had come alive and they were pulsating. Like you could feel the vibration in the walls. You could feel the vibration around you. You could feel it in your body. Like I said, another way that we could experience this is through humming. So now talking about humming, and everyone could do this right now. If you're driving, keep both hands on the wheel, please. But if you're at a stop sign or a stoplight or something and you're able to, then go ahead and do this. But you could either put your whole hand over your throat, or if there's something that's triggering for you there, then you could use either 2 fingers or 3 fingers. You put it over your throat and you could hum and do a deep hum and continue that. And when you do that, you're going to feel the buzzing. And when you feel the buzzing, you're going to feel it through your throat. You're going to feel it through your fingers. Then you're going to notice, just observe, but then you're going to feel it through your cells. And when you feel it through your cells, note that this buzzing, this is your vibration. This vibration, this is your song. This song, this is your instrument, right? You are the instrument. Your body is the instrument. And this is you, the instrument, healing your body, healing your throat chakra. That works for your throat chakra as well, as I like massage my throat chakra. So just to kind of wrap everything up, music is sound. Sound is frequency. Frequency is vibration. Vibration is the language of the universe. So let's be mindful of what we're listening to, what we're taking in. Let's be mindful of what we're sharing with the world, what we're putting out there. And through our own personal dance with life, let's enjoy it. Let's flow with it. Let's find ways to move with it rather than resist it. Because some things are inevitable. Some things are going to happen no matter what. But it's our reaction to them and our experience that we get to choose, right? So choosing to focus on the light and choosing to focus on the things that we could allow to ripple out there in a positive way. If you found this helpful and inspiring, and you would like to share the magic within with somebody else, share this episode with someone, let them tune in, let it ripple. And then if you'd like to subscribe to the show, you could subscribe and rate the show. We are on all major platforms. You can find Conscious Consumption on Awakening Airwaves for YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple. And you can find me at soleil-2to-moon.com. That is my website. And I have many offerings there. I also have some fun products there as well. You could also find me on Instagram at Soleil, SOLEIL, 2 moon. And until next time, thank you for consuming with consciousness. Take care.